All right, solving equation notes. We're going to put this on page 22. Okay, we have some vocabulary. We have, well, these are sort of out of order here. But we have an expression, and an expression contains numbers, variables, and operations. Okay, so for example, that could be something like 2x plus 4. So we have our numbers, our variable, our operation is to add, and this also means to multiply here, this 2x. An equation is a mathematical sentence showing two expressions are equal. Okay, so an equation is a mathematical sentence showing two expressions are equal. So we could have our 2x plus 4, that's our expression. And we could have another expression of 3x minus 2. And when we put that equal sign in there, that becomes an equation. Okay, our variable is the letter used to represent an unknown. A lot of times it's going to be X or Y or anything, M or K. Okay. Coefficient, this is the number in front of the letter. And our letter is our variable. Okay, so when we have 3x, that 3 is our coefficient. And when we have the number and the letter squished together, that means to multiply. Okay, a constant does not change. And that's going to be, like if we had 6x plus 3, that 3 would be our constant. All right, to solve equations, we need to use the opposite operations. That's called the inverse operations. So the inverse, or the opposite of addition, is subtraction. And the inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication, or the opposite of multiplication, is division. The inverse of division is multiplication. Okay, so these inverse operations undo the other operation, and that's how we solve equations. All right, so let's work through some examples. Okay, remember that your equation is equal, so both sides are balanced. So to keep it balanced, you have to do the same thing to both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so what you're going to do, this is how you're going to practice solving your equations, is you're going to draw, well, first off, let me just tell you, you've been doing this since you were in kindergarten, except that instead of saying x plus 4, it would say like a box plus 4 equals 8, or maybe a question mark. What number plus 4 equals to 8? 4. Okay, 4 plus 4 equals to 8. So yes, I understand you can do this in your head. But you're going to practice using the steps on these little baby equations that y'all did last year in 6th grade to help get you ready for the two-step equations you have coming up. So I know you could do it in your head, but you're going to show the steps. All right, so you're going to divide your equation in half. All right, and we need to get rid of whatever is on the same side as our letter, okay, because we want to leave our letter alone. So I need to get rid of this plus 4. All right, well, the opposite of adding 4 is to subtract 4. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. I do that because 4 minus 4 is 0. All right, so then I get x is equal to 8 minus 4 is 4, just like we knew it was. Okay, so we did that correctly. This is the steps you're going to show. All right, so number 2, what number minus 3 is going to give us 8? Well, we know that's going to be 11, but you're going to show the steps so you can practice for those more difficult equations. So you're going to divide your equation in half. We need to get rid of this minus 3 here, okay, because we want the x by itself. So the opposite of subtracting 3 is that inverse operation of adding 3. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. I do that because this makes 0. And then I'm left with x is equal to 8 plus 3 is 11, just like we said it was. So we are correct. Okay, now we have the x on the right side. No big deal, does not matter. Okay, so 7 is equal to some number plus 13. What number plus 13 is going to give me something smaller? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. We're going to do the steps. All right, so I'm going to divide my equation in half. I want to keep my x. I want to get rid of this plus 13. The opposite or the inverse of adding 13 is to subtract 13. What I do to one side, I do to the other side because this is 0. So now I just have my x by itself, and it's equal to 7 minus 13. So use those t-charts that y'all used yesterday on those integer reviews. Okay, so we have our minus and our plus. And I have a plus 7 and a minus 13. Those are on different sides, so I'm going to have to subtract. What is 13 minus 7? All right, well, 13 minus 7 is 6. And what do I have more of? More negatives or more positives? Well, I have more negatives. So this is a negative 6 because negative 6 plus 13 gives me 7. All right, so number 4, what number minus 6 gives me 18? All right, well, you probably could do this. All right, this is going to be 24. Divide the equation in half. I want my x by itself, so I have to get rid of the minus 6. The opposite of minusing 6 is to subtract 6. What I do to one side, I do to the other side. I do that because this turns to 0. So x is now equal to 18 plus 6, which is 24, which is what we said it was, so we're right. Okay, so I worked 4 examples with you, all right? So you pause the video and you work the year terms on your own so that you will know what you're doing, and then check back to make sure you got the answers correct. Okay, so these are the answers that you should have gotten. If you did not get these answers, then check your integer rules. Okay, 5 and 6 were pretty easy, but 7 and 8, we had our negatives. They were both negative, so we have to add those. And they stay negative because I was adding negatives to more negatives. Over here, the signs were different, so I had to subtract, but I had more negatives, so that's why that's negative. So remember, you have to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. This is how you're going to show your work.